circle comes up. Oh yes, we forgot about the recording. Good, thank you for whoever started that. Yeah, so you can now see where I'm touching on the screen. This is a little bit kind of fiddly, because as soon as the iPad kind of idles, you don't touch it for a while, it kind of disappears, and then you need to restart it again. The other thing that's fiddly about it is if I go into the menu here, and I say I'm going to go into my settings, for example, and then I know it's working because it's turned itself off. But if I turn that thing back on again, the show touch, you see, now you can see where I'm scrolling, and I'm trying to scroll, but it's not working. So you can't scroll while that thing is on. You have to turn that off, and then you can start scrolling. So it's not a perfect kind of solution, but you know, it can help to sort of show people where you are, you know, when you want to use the screen like this. And like I say, that little link I've just put in about the tip of the month we've got will show you how to set this up both for Zoom, for the Microsoft Teams, and also have this little thing about how to set up that assistive touch thing if you want to show that touch screen. Actually, the last thing I'll just show you at the moment, I've got it on, I'm on my PC, my laptop here, with microphones and speakers. I'm just going to turn that off and switch it over to the iPad. So now I've muted myself on my PC, I've unmuted myself on my iPad right here, and I'm going to go back into my communication app, and then hopefully we should hear that communication app speaking as well.
Each were are vetted, asking,
etc. I can't actually tell whether you can hear that or not, but hopefully you can. Okay, I'm going to switch myself back over, and then I'm done.
Okay. Thanks, Magnus. That's really good. And this is now being recorded, so we can go back and watch that. I think we'll now move on to Fern and Shauna and come back to the A-Power app. That's also on a recording, so you can watch that later anyway. Fern and Shauna, over to you.
Awesome, thank you. I'll just kick Magnus off. There we go. So hopefully you guys can see our screen okay. We were asked to sort of talk about some of the remote working strategies we've been using, or things that we've kind of found out over the last little while. And so some of you will know we've run things like Kiwichat days virtually for 2 years now, and that we through over the last sort of 6 or 7 months have done a lot of online work. So between Shauna and I, we will sort of share some bits and pieces. So yeah, Kiwichat days have been going for about 2 years, and we sort of pivoted to them really quickly during the first lockdown in March 2020. And I was actually on maternity leave then. And so I believe, Shauna, we were running like one a week.
Yeah, so essentially, I think it was, yeah, we were trying to run, or we were kind of booking out in-person Kiwichat days, and then they were being cancelled because different regions were going into lockdown. We didn't know what was going to happen in terms of like forecasting when we'd be able to do sessions again, and we kind of realized that we needed to jump to an online platform quickly that we could kind of access as many people as possible around the country, and have that resource available that people could, you know, pick up and watch it at a time that suited them, depending if they were at home or when Auckland was still in red and other schools had started going back. So we kind of split them into age groups as well, so that we could run 2 a term with as many staff as we could to make sure that we were catching that older, more emergent communicators as well as more of our younger kiddies.
Yeah, and then we also then had our individual sessions, which we needed to move into a more virtual space, which had its challenges because being a national service, the Auckland office not being able to leave the Auckland region meant that we were still getting referrals from the regions, but we weren't able to go there and actually provide the service. So this is sort of a bit of a breakdown of what we, how those 2 different pathways kind of looked for us. So we're just going to go into a bit more depth into each of those branches. So yeah, the Kiwichat days initially moved at the beginning of 2020 and actually included almost all people from the Talklink therapy team. There was sort of, I think, a panic of finding people work to do. And so everybody was like, yep, I can do that. And then over the last year, it was streamlined to cover essential roles before, during, and after the session. The sessions are planned well in advance. So we actually have a planning meeting either at the end of December or the beginning of January, and we plan for the year. And that's topics and who's going to be responsible and those sorts of things.
Yeah, we do planning for both during the session, and then we always provide like a handout post session that people can carry on the same theme with activities relevant to the topic, which is usually around a central book. So tying in with that literacy approach so that there's that ongoing, support throughout the week. And that's all planned at the time that we're doing the slideshows and things like that as well.
It's worth saying that it is a significant resource pool. There is a lot of resourcing that goes into it. In some ways, less than the in-person Kiwichat days, because we're not needing to run an individual chat session in each region. And we haven't got the travel, but you'll see on the next slide with the roles and responsibilities, there's quite a few of those needed. And then we've also got the positive side of it is that we saw an increased reach of clients. So we had lots of clients able to attend who otherwise wouldn't have, because they were really rural or
staffing issues in terms of being able to get release for staff to take students to Kiwichat days, or some of those clients who are more medically compromised who potentially wouldn't be comfortable going to something like that in person. They were all able to attend, which was really awesome. And I guess, Fern, as well, it would be worth saying we record the sessions.
Yes.
So that say, if it didn't work out as it's in the middle of somebody's morning tea time, or, it wasn't the perfect time to be meeting where everyone was sitting down, they could always watch it on demand later on, and all those resources were still available.
And it's also quite good. I've had a couple of clients who thought, I'm not sure that's really for Johnny, and that's not the kind of thing he's going to enjoy. So we've been able to send the link to the recorded sessions to teams and sort of say, hey, even if you only watch the first 15 minutes of this, it'll give you a taste of what it's like, and you can see what kind of the engagement is like, and then that can really help. In the regions in particular, we've used Kiwichat days in the past to really support people who are waiting on our wait list, and so being able to have a bank of recorded session, it really helps, because then what we can say to people is, I know you wanting to see how this works, if you were reading a story, how you would use your call board, if you're wanting to ask questions, how you might use your communication device, go on to our Kiwichat day and have a look and watch the session, and they can actually do some learning there as well. So we are seeing that as a resource for those on our wait list as well. So the next, I'll just move over. So you can see that there's 6 key roles and responsibilities per session. So there's 12 each term. The whole having been the host, I would say the host is probably the easiest bit, because you just kind of rock up on the day and use all your jazz hands and get all the praise for it, and don't do any of the mahi behind the scenes getting it all ready.
There was a question, Fern, that just came up in terms of SLTs being able to join Kiwichat sessions as well to support teams, and that's totally. We have lots of people do that. They just register like an individual would if they wanted to come along.
Yeah.
And the other one was that's not on there is we also ask staff members to record themselves using AAC that we then embed into the PowerPoint. So whether that's in the planning team or we have to go and ask other staff members to record themselves using a device around the topic that we're talking about, and then embed it in to reduce some of that lag or that some of those technical issues that we were having with people, like, you know, not being able to model because there was a glitch or Wi-Fi cut out or that sort of stuff, or there was a massive lag between audio and visuals. So we did lots of tech working out to figure out how it made the best polished product.
And that really did take some time, and a massive shout out to Celine Wong, who won't be here because she's working in adults now, but she put a lot of work into making this amazing document, which was sort of like had exactly what the responsibility was of each person and what should be done, and it's just made the whole thing much more streamlined. So the host does the run through, so we always book a session a day or two before, and we run through the whole thing to check that it's all working and that the links work and that everybody kind of understands what's going on, and then they host on the day. Then you've got your screen sharer who shares their screen, and the reason why that has to be separate from the host is to do with
pop-ups and confidentiality,
and also we record. So we want to make sure that it's literally just that one screen and that there's nothing else happening. We then have someone who monitors the chat, because inevitably there's always a tech issue. You know, someone hasn't got any noise, hasn't got any volume and all that kind of stuff. So we've got somebody sitting there checking all of those bits. And also if any comments come through that the host hasn't seen. Then the recorder is a separate thing again, because we want to record a very specific shot. So what we want to record is the host and the PowerPoint presentation and nothing else. So we don't want to capture any of the attendees accidentally in the record or any of that stuff. So that has to be something that's done, and they need to understand sort of how to set it all up in their Zoom view so that they can see that. And then there's the planning team, which is a minimum of 3 people, and they plan all of the activities both during the session and afterwards.
They do all the data entry, they register all the attendees, make contact with them, make sure they have all the links, you know, do all of the kind of admin-y stuff behind the scenes, which is a lot of work as well.
And then we've got 2 main Kiwichat admin team, and they like recruit staff to participate, make sure that all the things are booked in, check that Zoom is working, and they kind of tend to be the people that we'll go to on the day and be, this isn't working. Yeah, so it's a huge piece of work. And so if you were planning to undertake a large group, you wanting it to be quite slick, these are kind of the things you need to think about. Yeah, it's big. It's a big shift.
Yeah, and somebody asked how many we have attend Kiwichats. It depends on the age group and depends on the term. So sometimes we get up to 80, 90 people in a Zoom call. And then there might be other people in the classroom that we don't know have attended, because we just see the number of tiles that come up on the screen. And then again, you know, because we don't know the people who are coming, it is quite hard to forward plan because we plan them so far in advance. So it's not as flexible to adapt on the day as it would be potentially an in-person session, just like anything that's being held virtually.
Are there any, I can see like 5 things in the chat, so I'm just checking on
I think most of them we've covered.
Cool.
Yeah.
So there's definitely strengths and challenges to running Kiwichat days. You know, we've talked about these already. That wider reach is huge, and increased access to Kiwichat days it doesn't restrict the clients and what they can access. Reduces travel time for Talklink, which is in essentially also going to positively impact the wait list, she says, hopefully.
Yeah. I was going to say, even the fact that it's recorded means that therapists like yourselves, if you have a child that you think would be suitable for Kiwichat Day, being able to send the link to parents to be like, this is what it is, this is what it's about. Would this be something that interests you, rather than like getting them maybe to take a day off work to come in to see a Kiwichat that may have, you know, 3 people attend, because some days the numbers are really flexible in person, or variable, sorry, in person, whereas with the online ones, they can watch it ahead of time from last term's one and get ready to sign up for next term's.
There's a reduced need for physical resources. So often when we were doing the in-person ones, we'd need to be like cutting and laminating. We'd need to make sure that we had enough core boards and access to AAC for like in-person modeling for everybody who was going to attend. And I would also say it's not on here as a strength, but I think as well, we do see that there's the communication partners have to actually be more actively involved. Often at Kiwichat Days, you'll have people who think they can come along and have a nice cup of tea while the kids kind of engage in activities, whereas with a virtual, they have to be, you know, writing in what somebody's saying into the chat, or they have to be, so there's a little bit more of that interaction and ownership, I think, which is a real positive. And in terms of flexibilities, we can kind of do what we want. Like if we can make it happen in a virtual space, then we can do it. And then some of the challenges is it is a very resource heavy on clinicians' time, and you couldn't have the same people doing it every term because they would not get an awful lot else done. And sometimes it's difficult to gauge interest in attendance. So there's huge variability, like Shauna said. Sometimes we get 90 kids attending, and sometimes we'll have like 6 registrations. And it's really difficult to understand. And then because of that, there's less accountability, as often is the case with any like free courses. People kind of think, oh, I haven't actually got time for that. So then they might have registered, but they don't actually turn up. It is more difficult, as Shauna said, to tailor those sessions to individuals, because if we've got 90 participants in a session, then there's no way we can tailor it to everybody who attends. And participation can be really variable. So I've done the last 2, and I've had some really good participation. It's been really exciting to see, you know, the kids getting up and dancing and those sorts of things, and really kind of getting involved. But I've also been part of ones where we ran one last year, Shauna, where literally nobody came. Like we were all sitting there ready to do one, and there was not a single person.
There were people, and I guess that goes back to that registration. If you have registered and you don't let us know, we still run them, and if there's no one there, it's quite embarrassing, or the amount of time that's been. I mean, that wasn't that was more for our teenage group that we were running, so it was quite a specific group of kids who is on an invite only, but which we aren't running at the moment because we just haven't got the resources. But yeah, that can be a challenge for sure. So we'll move on to our individual assessments. So again, for us, and this is probably quite true for you, doing virtual assessments for AAC has been quite difficult, potentially, you know, getting into classrooms, that sort of stuff. So we've had to shift more into a virtual capacity for this stuff. As you can see, there's lots of strengths, but there's also lots of challenges in terms of doing online assessments, particularly the tech side of things. Do people have reliable internet? Do they know how to use Zoom? Do they have the ability to send the equipment back to us? All of those things we've had to kind of troubleshoot. And as a team, we met, the North Island team, or the Upper North Island team, met as a team to kind of figure out what things were going really well in a virtual space and what things were really challenging. And as a team, we kind of came up with all of the same challenges, which probably would be quite reflective for you guys. So as a team, we decided to break off into subgroups and work on different parts of these challenges. So the first thing we kind of did was we made some quick guides on how to use Zoom or Team depending on what platform would suit the client. We also gave an email handout with visuals and things like that on what the team would need to do to prepare for a session that we were doing via telehealth. Prior to picking up a client, we would check that they were happy to do things in a virtual capacity. If, they had no internet, or, the internet's really sketchy, or, there was 5 other family members at home and it wasn't going to work in a virtual capacity, we potentially put that person on hold and picked up the next person to just keep things moving. And what we also did was we had a session plan for our internal staff on how we could kind of work things through to build rapport, do the tech stuff so that it would set up success for ongoing sessions. Cool.
And the session plan kind of looked a bit like this. So
oh, you go, Fern.
So one thing that I attended the telehealth webinar that NZSTA put on, I think it was September, with the PhD candidate from Chile. And some of this comes from what he was talking about, is you actually have to prepare to build rapport. When you usually go into a family's home or a fan house home, you notice things, like you might say, oh gosh, isn't it cold this morning? Or, oh, like I went in to see somebody the other day and I said, and they had these humongous speakers in their living room. And I said, oh man, do you like to listen to music? And there were like CDs everywhere. And so there's things like that you can use to build rapport. But in that, when you're in this space, you're really restricted by what you can see. And, if somebody's got like a virtual background or anything like that, you lose all of that kind of context. So you need to plan to build rapport. You actually need to think about what you're going to say, how you're going to engage it. And then talking about whether someone's used telepractice before or not, as Shauna said. And then some discussion about the video call, introducing Talklink and our service, and then you kind of start the assessment session with some questions and things. So there's quite a few steps before you actually even start any of that assessing.
The other thing is, and the next slide you'll see as well, is just the information that we sent out. So it was nice and clear what they needed to do, what Zoom was, where to find the links to download Zoom onto their computer, things like that, and making it really clear on like making sure they were connected to the internet and the device was connected to the internet, all of that stuff that just made the trials more successful. Other things we don't have on here was we recorded sessions, so that say if not everyone would come to a session, they could access the recording to review things back and then email us back if there was anything they'd like to add or change. And we also came up with a document of useful links, videos, other tips and tricks and things like that, so that as a therapy team, we had enough resources to kind of include things like what is aided language stimulation, what does it look like, all of that stuff, so that we had this internal bank of resources to share, so that we weren't spending hours trying to hunt that stuff down on an individual level.
Yeah. And one thing that I kind of took from the PD that I went to was we can actually make it more whānau centered using telehealth than in person, because if we've got koro who lives in Whakatane and the rest of the whānau live in Torbay, but they've got a strong relationship and they speak to each other constantly and they help with decision making as a collective, then we can say, well, actually, shall we send Koro a Teams invite and they can come and they can see what we're doing, and they can, if they've got questions, they can ask me directly, and that we can actually branch out and we don't need to be doing just the people that are in the room right now, but actually, or mum works in the city and she would struggle to get to school for a session, but she could do a 20-minute, 30-minute break at lunchtime or at morning tea time where she could actually just flick over and participate in the session. So I think that was really exciting for me, actually, to think that we could reach more and be far more whānau centered than when we're conducting our in-person sessions.
Or for like a team, if you've recorded it, you can always, just record send it to the team in an email, and then if somebody comes back to you because they've shifted classes, resend that email with the training video and what was discussed and what the goals were. Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. How are we going, girls? Sorry.
Oh, we're done.
Checking.
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
amazing. Didn't want to miss out on anything, but
No,
just conscious
that's all
that
good.
got a couple of things to fit in.
Try to speed
So
through.
much amazing information and such a great resource, I think, for all of us actually to be able to be tapping into should we find ourselves in the situation again, but also ongoing, just to know that we can access those resources, you know, to use in classes or with with individual sessions as well, I'm sure. And you've put on some great links there. Thank you to Michaela and Sean and Fern, amazing information there. So we'll jump into hearing now from Brooke Dibley. And yeah, thanks heaps. Free.
Which get people to turn off their videos. That might speed up the just to get through. Hopefully sound will work.
Hi, I'm Brooke from Simply Speaking SLT. I help speech therapists do teletherapy, and I also create digital speech therapy materials that are being used by speech therapists all over the world. Today I'm going to be talking about AAC and its use in teletherapy, and I'm the first to admit that once AAC is involved with teletherapy, things get a little bit more difficult because you now have to also share your productions on AAC both ways. And so today I'm going to be covering a few tips and ideas for modeling AAC. And when it comes to having your student show you their productions on AAC, I'm not going to talk so much about that because every student's different. It depends on the system they're using and the resources at their disposal. Hopefully an adult, if they are a child, is with them, or someone who can help facilitate showing you what they are producing. An idea would be maybe a parent or caregiver joins the Zoom on their phone, so that their phone is like the third person. Make sure they mute everything so you don't get that annoying echo. Maybe have a little trial before you get going, and then they can use their camera to point at the AAC. But also it's a valid skill to work on with your student, having them show the camera their AAC productions and working out creative ways with your student. I keep saying student, I know you work with adults sometimes, but I work with kids, so forgive me, I'm going to keep saying that one. Working on that with them for sharing their AAC productions through a webcam is a valuable skill right now because a lot of us are having to communicate online. Another idea would also be that if your student's AAC system is on an iPad, you could look into whether or not they're able to join the Zoom session on that iPad as well as on a computer with a webcam, and that iPad share its screen so you can see what they're producing. So those are a few ideas you'll have to get creative with. But today I'm going to be talking about modeling AAC, and in this video I'm going to be sharing my screen. And so the idea would be that you share your screen during Zoom. On my screen recording software, you're going to see a little red circle around my mouse. Unfortunately, that is only a feature of my recording software. I have not worked out how to ever get that to work on Zoom, but I just wanted to highlight that. And then also I just want to say that I won't be talking about screen mirroring here today because I think someone else is already talking about it. It's just a few other creative ideas for modeling AAC, and I'm going to be showing you in the form of activities because I think sometimes it can be hard to conceptualize what all these tips look like actually in a teletherapy session as an activity. So I'm going to be showing you 3 different activity ideas. They're just ideas for you to kind of have as a jumping off point and ways that you might model AAC. And then I'm going to show you a few camera hacks as well. So sorry I can't be there in person, but I hope this video is helpful. Let's get into it. Here, as you can see, I've got a low-tech core vocabulary board that is a PDF, and I have this red circle that I can use for modeling. So we can say my turn. And so I'm going to show you how I set this up from the beginning. And this system works best when your mouse is just too small to kind of show where you're modeling. If you'd rather model with your mouse, this is just a bit easier to see. Okay, so here is our core vocabulary board PDF. I'm going to open it in Adobe Acrobat Reader. It's free and it's my preferred PDF reader on my computer. I'm just going to close over here, and then I am going to rotate the view. You might not have to do this if your core vocabulary board shows up the right direction. And then I'm going to choose over here to fit one full page so we can see it all. I'm going to open up the comment bar over here, close this, and we got this toolbar come up when we opened the comment bar, and I'm going to choose circle, and it's probably going to default to something pretty see-through and blue like this. So over here we can choose to change it. Now if you can't see all of this, there'll be like a little extras thing you have to hit. It'll be because your screen isn't as wide as mine, but the option will be there. You'll just have to hit the thing to open the rest of the toolbar. So I'm going to choose to do red, and I'm going to bring the opacity down to about 50% roughly, and I'm going to make my border blue. And here we have it. I'm just going to make it a bit smaller, and we can use it to model now just by picking it up, dragging, and okay, let's have a look now how I might use this circle here and this PDF in a session. Okay, so in this session we've got our game here on the left that I'm screen sharing. This is from my website. It's called Gassy Grandma. You can probably guess what it's about. And then on the right, I've got the Adobe Acrobat window with our counter there. So I've just split screened. If you don't know how to split screen on your computer, then just go ahead and Google how to split screen on a Windows, Mac, and the operating system that you're using. So then we can use the circle to model my turn, and we can model some other things like what, for example, you know how to model AAC, and then we can talk about what we're doing, she, eat, you know, wherever the child's at for what you're modeling, and then play the game over here. And yeah, so that's how you would do it. And I will then show you how you might do this with high tech. Okay, so you just saw a demonstration of me modeling low-tech AAC next to this game here. Now I'm going to show you an idea that I got from Sarah Gregory. You should definitely follow her and look up her website and watch her YouTube videos. She has a bunch of great ideas for using AAC in teletherapy. And in this video, I'm going to show you a different way to present high-tech AAC that I hadn't even thought of before until I saw her video. So I've got the game here, and then on this tab here, I've quickly put together a Google slide document where I inserted video simply of me modeling the phrase, my turn.
My turn. My turn.
Now, it might not be very clear for you because I'm sharing my screen, but if you want the clearest video, I would recommend uploading your video clips to YouTube unlisted and then embedding them in, or you can just upload the videos to your Google Drive, and then if you're signed into that Google Drive account in Slides, when you go insert video, your Google Drive will come up and you can insert them. The first time you play them, they're a little grainy, but then when you play them a second time, they're much clearer. So this is a little bit grainy. It's because it's loading each time. And then the second time I play it, it'll be much clearer. See?
My turn.
There we go.
My turn.
So I think that the quality would go up if you used a YouTube video instead. So if you make it unlisted, then it'll be private and no one will be able to see it. Okay, so we've got the phrase, and then you could have a picture of your student and a picture of you, and we just use this arrow, which I inserted from the shapes, which is here, inserting a shape, and you can just point to whose turn it is. And so this is kind of part of the activity in itself. And then also I've made this slide where this video shows me modeling she, eat.
Eat.
And then we can use our arrow to represent what we want her to eat. Now again, remember, for activities like this, if you can share your screen and share your mouse controls with your students, it's nice for them because they can move this around. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this already, but my preference is students to be on a laptop for teletherapy sessions. It's just easier, there's more capabilities, and you're working against less, less limitations. If they're on an iPad for the Zoom session, it's difficult. So another great thing about this setup is when the video is not playing, you've still got a front page representation of their AAC system. So I can still model if there was a phrase I wanted to say that I hadn't filmed, like done, or anything like that. We can still move this around to model, which is nice. Okay, another idea I wanted to show you was setting up a PowerPoint file. So we're using PowerPoint for this, but again, you could do the same in Google Slides, where we've got on one slide our activity and then on the other slide our AAC. So this is just a screenshot of the low-tech PDF you saw before, and I've locked it. And how you do that in PowerPoint is right-click and you hit lock. Here it's showing unlock, of course, because I've locked it. And then we've got an arrow that I put in from the shapes, and I've just put in a table with numbers. And this activity is a Bingo Doorbell Pages activity from Lesson Picks. So I just set it up like this, that I put a bunch of seaweed in my tray. If you've got Lesson Picks, this won't be surprising to you. I put in a shell and then created the Bingo Doorbell activity. And then in PowerPoint, I just came in and put a circle on top of each one using a shape, the inserting of the shapes, and then I put a number in each circle. Now, I know I'm not going into detail, and if you're not familiar with these programs, you might feel like I'm rushing. It's the purpose of this video is to give you ideas, but when it comes to detailed ideas for creating teletherapy resources, you should go and look at my Intro to Teletherapy Part 2, or show me how to, I'll put the links down on the bottom. I have a whole set of webinars about this kind of thing. Not this specifically, but just the basics of creating materials to use. Okay, so for this activity, we can model look under number 7. Is the shell there? Is the shell under number 7? No, we got seaweed. No, not there. Not there. Anyway, you know what I mean. So that's what you do. And that was as another idea. And remember, instead of a PDF, screenshot of the PDF here, you could have a screenshot of the front page of the child's AAC. So if you're not able to screen mirror, or screen mirroring is just slowing down your computer, you can at least model with the front page here. Or you could even have a few slides here that represent different, screenshots of the child's high-tech AAC. It does unfortunately limit the amount of spontaneous productions you can do, but at least you've got, the grids to use the arrow on. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the last part of this video, I'm going to show you a couple of camera hacks. So let's get into it. I just want to quickly cover how to make your students' video bigger in both this mode and also when sharing your screen. Also, excuse the fact that my background changed. My green screen is lacking on the sides. Okay, so for this mode, if you really want to see bigger what your student is doing, if you go into the view setting and go speaker, then they will be much bigger and you'll be smaller up the top. Often this isn't where we have our issue. It can be when we're sharing our screen and we are a little bit limited in how big we can make the student, but I'm going to share my screen and give you some ideas. Okay, so traditionally this is what happens to our camera feeds over there, floating a little bit. So if you change to show small active speaker video, then you can drag and it will get that big at least. And normally your student will fill up more of this page here, or more of this window, sorry, because they will be on a laptop, hopefully, with a webcam, whereas this is just using a phone right now, so it's quite small, but hopefully you'll be able to see a lot more of it. But that is as big as I can get a student. Maybe some other people have some ideas for that, but to be honest, if you really need to see them bigger, just stop sharing your screen, let them show you what they have to say on their AAC, and then you can share your screen again and they can get used to waiting and taking a beat while you share your screen again. Okay, for my last tip, I'm going to give you a little bit of a camera hack. So often we want to make sure that our students can see our faces, and we're not 100% sure what they've done with Zoom, how they've moved our faces, especially if we're sharing our screen and we know that our face got smaller. So this is a trick that you can do. So I've turned off my camera in Zoom when I'm trying to do this, so that Zoom isn't using your camera. And then I'm going to go to search and I'm going to search camera. So all Windows computers should have a camera and it should use your webcam. Hello. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to settings and I'm going to choose for my quality. I'm going to take it down to 4:3 and you'll understand why in a moment. So when I took it down to 4:3, it actually made this much smaller, and it'll make sense why in a minute. And then I'm going to hit control. I'm going to zoom in. Ooh, there I am. Okay, I'm going to make myself smaller. I'm going to move this window over, put myself there. I don't need to be this much of the screen though, so I'm going to move it like that. Okay, so I've resized the window to be this size. I'm going to pop it up here without touching the top, because if I touch the top, it'll snap big. And then I'm going to click my PowerPoint so it opens up. And as you can see, I'm now there. I'll just move myself over. So the reason we took down the size is so that we're not taking up as much space, and therefore we can fit right there. And then I can even zoom in some more. If I click on here and hold down control and zoom in even more. Sorry guys. But now my face is right here, and because I'm sharing my screen, if I was sharing my screen in a Zoom session, my student can see me there and I don't have to worry about what they've done with my Zoom window. And I can still do my therapy in this window over here, which is nice and big. That's my last tip. Hope this has been helpful. Bye.
Great, that was fantastic. So thank you so much to Brooke. And pass that on to her. If you could pop back up with your video, it'll be really nice to see your faces again. We are going to, so as Brooke mentioned, she's got a lot of resources available on YouTube, so you can go on there and check those out. We will send probably an email with some links, might be the best way. I think now we're just going to skip ahead to, time is almost up, but Christy's just going to share a resource from the UK AAC SIG, which I mentioned earlier. And yeah, Christy, over to you.
Thanks, Meryl. I think maybe you're going to be able to share your screen, are you? Because I'm just working off a phone.
Yeah, I am. I'm just going to find what we need, and
so
I'll do that.
The site that we've gathered some other extra ideas from is called aacsig.org.uk. And there's numerous resources available there, as there are in many places, for free. And there's also an option to join for a £10 fee, and that gives you extra access to quite a few other resources, including their training days that they have a few times a year. And the most recent one was in March, which was Jane Farrell, which many of us know, who does the comprehensive literacy training, both in smaller modules and then the full week learning. So it's probably, you know, it might be within your organisation even that you look to getting a membership with that. But what they also do is archive a lot of their information that they've played previously. And Meryl made these lovely background boards earlier that got sent round with the link today. And there is an article now, Meryl's got that up there now, about how to create background on the right-hand side there of the screen, how to create background supports for remote sessions. It's about a 15-minute watch. And it just gives you an idea of we are not sponsored by anybody, but it gives you an idea of how to use any type of symbol system to create a virtual background that you can then point to and interface with your clients and keep yourself in the middle of the imagery. So you've been given the backgrounds to have a little play with. I think. Yeah, I think Brianna sent them out earlier on the link, but that's quite a good one. Maybe Meryl, if we go back up, and then the other area under resources. So resources comes in sort of 3 batches. And if you were to click the 2019-2021 group, sorry, just waiting for you couldn't find the page. That's all right.
Sorry, it comes up.
It's a new website, by the way. It literally just launched a couple of weeks ago, but they do have some of the organisations that also help support. Now, Call from Scotland, I think a lot of us use some of their matrices and things for determining AAC support, so that's quite helpful. And then they've got the free paper-based AAC section. I know a lot of you will use Pinterest and things like that, but again, it's under the links. They've got some with talking mats as well, and just a whole range of low text, symbol or text, and text-based supports there, and they seem to update those quite frequently. So they're just links to some of the more commercial suppliers, I guess. Anyway, it might be worth a look. And yeah, there is that group there that Meryl's showing just now that it's specific to teletherapy. I think that's everything there.
Oh, and if you're showing speaker view, you may be able to see my lovely showing you. I don't like that we've run out of time, for instance, or I really like everything that's been shared today. So what Christy calls being the weather presenter, as easy as creating a page on a Google slide and then downloading it and saving it as a JPEG and then adding it as a virtual background. Easy peasy.
Space for yourself in the middle.
Yeah. And apologies for either A, Palmyra. I will send you the short video that Caro and I created on Zoom. She couldn't join us today either. So we'll include that. Bree has gathered lots of the information from the chat and the Jamboards, and she will send that probably as the easiest way to sort of share information from today with you. We've almost run out of time. Any questions, comments, ideas that please feel free to chuck anything else in the Jamboard while you're there. No, nothing from the floor. Thanks for joining us today. I think the number of people joining us today probably, sorry, I'll stop sharing my screen, probably highlights that it is something that, you know, we all feel a bit of a felt need for. And I think I feel a bit overwhelmed when I see some of the things presented, but nice to be able to go back through some of the content. Hopefully, again, if you want to, and I'm sure contact any of the presenters and they will be happy to give you some more info too.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for your contributions. That's wonderful.
Cool. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Please let us know, as always, if there's anything that's burning on your mind that you'd like us to talk about for the next SIG. We've got a few ideas from the last time we sort of surveyed you all, and we'll work our way through some of those, but otherwise see you next time. Thank you.